Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to Football Theory here on Texas Football. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by my esteemed colleague and very good friend, Jeff Howe. We got to talk a little bit about Texas, Georgia. I'm sorry, guys. We got to wrap it up. So that will be part of Football Theory. But then we're also looking ahead, of course, to Texas big game coming up versus their old Southwest Conference rival, the Arkansas Razorbacks. And that offense, trust me, folks, it's potent. It is one of the most explosive offenses in the country. So we'll talk about that and dive into it. Before we do that, let's thank our first sponsor of Football Theory, our friends over at SeatGeek. That's right, folks. If you are thinking about going to any college football game, NFL game, and you need tickets, or any sporting event, period, and you need tickets, our friends over at SeatGeek, they are the #1 rated ticketing app, folks, with more than 35 million downloads. Whether you're talking about college football or the NFL, each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. So you look for the green dots, you know that means go. Red means bad, so you make it easy on you. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And of course, we've got a great deal for the On Texas Football fam. You use the code, you see it right there on your screen, OTF10, and you'll get 10% off your next set of tickets from SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with the promo code OTF10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you very much to our friends over at SeatGeek. All right, first, let's talk about breaking tendency, because you know one of the kind of mantras of football theory is that, hey man, to win big games, you got to break tendencies. Always a lot of extra prep done for big games, especially when you got bye weeks in Texas. So you got to find a way to break tendency. And we can talk about how Texas broke tendency, because they did. I just don't think they didn't do it enough and effectively enough. But one of the things that stood out to me about, first of all, let's just talk about the onside kick, because that is the ultimate tendency breaker in football. Number one, you don't do it very often. And when you do it, how it's so rarely that it is successful that, you know, I mean, it's just one of those things that it is truly a very, very rare play in football, period, at any level. It doesn't matter. And it was Kirby Smart, just to go out there, talk about breaking tendency. It was the first onside kick that he has called as a head coach. Boom.
Really?
Yep. First onside kick for Kirby Smart. Hadn't done it. Last onside kick he was a part of, a 2015 Bama. They pulled it off. Remember? Break tendency to beat Clemson. Game was tied in the fourth quarter. Big Scone Saban said, let's do it. Successfully did it. Basically the reason they won the game. So it was the first time he had done it. You can't break tendency better than that, Jeff.
No. To do, you know, we talk about all the time. I think the best example we always talk about, you know, that Patriots Rams Super Bowl is one. Oh, that's a boring Super Bowl. And you, myself, and Matt Butler back in the Longhorn Blitz days, we did like an hour and a half show on how great it was. The genius at the very end was Bill Belichick. Remember, he went to 22 personnel, and they had run it like, I don't know, like less than 5 times.
It was like 7 times the entire league had run it all season long, all 32 teams.
But against that Wade Phillips defense, that was all they had. And Wade Phillips even said, like, we basically everybody emptied the clip, and it was like, hey, what do you got left? You're throwing rocks and beer bottles and whatever else at that point. So yeah, but the first, I didn't know that was Kirby's first onside kick. That's a hell of a tendency breaker.
Man, that's crazy. Like I said, I was doing research and read it, and I'll make sure I give them credit because it was from The Athletic. I mean, it was the New York Times, and they said, yeah, here basically it was Kirby's first onside kick as a head coach. Sorry, I apologize. It's actually CBS Sports. It says Smart called for an onside kick, his first ever in 10th season at Georgia.
Oof.
Yeah. So it's, like I said, that ultimate tendency break. And I thought about, I was like, can't break tendency better than that. Since we're talking special teams, before we move on to offense for them, because I got a nice little nugget for you. How about this? Their punter, who is actually a really good punter, was Brett Thorson. Yeah. He had his worst punting performance of his career.
Yeah.
34 yards per punt, the lowest in a single game of his career. And Kirby said it wasn't because of Ryan Niblett. I think it is because of Ryan Niblett. I think they were trying to avoid Ryan Niblett a lot of the times. And that's how good Ryan Niblett is. He's basically, you're getting hidden yardage with Ryan Niblett all the time because teams are trying to directional punt and trying to punt away from him. That is hell. It's hard to do. And so that's crazy. He had he did have a 49-yarder too, by the way, in the fourth quarter, and it still had a 34.6 yards per punt. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah. And that's one
he's
of
had bad games versus Texas. He got hurt versus Texas last year.
Yeah, in the SEC championship game, hurt his knee, and that's one of the. There's a lot of frustrating things about the Georgia game, but right, field position, Texas controlled field position much better than they did really up until it got out of hand late third quarter, up until the onside kick. They control field position much better than they did in either game against Georgia last year. Yeah, especially the first regular season game where Georgia dominated field position. That you just weren't able to capitalize on it.
All right, I got a nice little another nugget. By the way, shout out Kirby Smart did give Ryan Nibble a shout out in the onside kick. He said one of the factors was I don't like kicking to that guy. I don't want to kick to that dude. And Ryan Nibble, when Smart giving you love like that, you're like, hey, you doing it. You're doing something right. Like you're doing something right.
And we heard, from the Texas side, they talked about they worked on the onside kick in practice. They were prepared for it, but they didn't look prepared for it at all. And typically, Rod, a lot of that stuff, now it seems like now more it's like the kicker's decision, or if it's a fake punt, it's the personal protector's decision, or like, hey, if you see the man uncovered, we're running it, or if you see them, and we've talked about a lot on the channel, when your front line on your kick return immediately backpedals, it's almost like, hey, for the kicker, if you see them, if it looks like they're backpedaling or their formation's the same, we're going for it. Like, don't think twice about it. We're doing it. And, alignment was off, just the way Texas was managed.
Oh, yeah.
Their kickoff returns was off. And again, that's a hell of a job by your scouting department and ultimately your head coach to roll the dice right there.
Yeah, it has been pointed out that the guys on the kickoff were leaving early prior to we're supposed to see the ball. I've been one of those guys. You see the ball kicked to guarantee that, all right, there is no onside kick. Because it's so rare, guys were getting lazy and they were not doing that. To Jeff's point, that should have been self-scouted in the bye week.
Yeah.
It was not. There was also a wider gap, as Jerry pointed out, between Jonah Williams and Ron Robertson there, I believe, and that they also saw that. So it give Kirby props. I mean, leaves no stone unturned. All right, starting off talking special team. Damn, that's how football theory is getting deep in the weeds. All right, let's talk about Georgia's offense against Texas defense. Also something that stood out. Dude, 21 under center snaps.
Unreal.
Georgia. 21, guys. 21 under center snaps for Georgia. They even ran I formation on Texas a couple of times. Just straight up I formation, old school on them. They had 5 passes, 16 runs out of basically under center, essentially. And they ended up averaging basically around 6 yards per play. Around 6 yards per play under center. But they were big plays, too. That 4th and 1, that conversion, that 10-yard conversion there, that was a great play call. That ended up being that was under center. You had the 17-yard touchdown early on, remember? Yeah. And the rollout, boot, that was under center on 2nd and 9. And then they started pounding the rock on Texas under center too. But you had a lot of rollout stuff under center. So Texas better figure it out. I don't know if Taylor and Green's going to center. You ain't got to worry about that with them. But that's an unbelievable. Talk about a tendency breaker. Like that. There's no way anybody in the SEC guys this season has got 21 snaps under center. There ain't no damn way. That's got to be the most in the SEC guys this year. There ain't no. I haven't fact checked that, but just watching ball. 21 snaps under center. How many snaps do they have overall as a damn offense?
I don't know if Texas as a defense has seen 21 snaps under center in SEC play before that game.
That's crazy.
Because just nobody's under center anymore.
Nobody's under center. Okay, so they have 64 plays, I believe, on offense total. Bro, third of their plays were under center.
Yeah. Mike Bobo, if you look at the 3 games against Texas, with the and I think the difference for Georgia was you didn't have Carson Beck turning the football over because Gunnar Stockton does a much better job protecting the football than Beck did. But Mike Bobo called the kind of game, honestly, in this game that I kind of wish Sark would have called, where they were patient with the run and said, hey, we're content to take that 2 or 3 yard run. Like, we just keep throwing body blows and eventually it'll break. And it did. And I also dig that, and look, it helps when your quarterback accounts for as many touchdowns as he does have incomplete passes. Like that was very Colt McCoy like precision by Gunnar Stockton in that game. And The other thing for me, with the way Mike Bobo called that game, you talk about being under center rod and running the football. When they started to hit, the run started to hit coinciding with when you give up that drive, then they get the onside kick.
Oh, yeah.
And you can look at the film and be like, okay, did Texas guys on defense, and I don't, you say what you want about this term, the guys started making some business decisions that it looked like some guys kind of gave in on defense a little bit. Well, I just think it's more mental to me than physical, because think about what the defense went through at that point. You gave up 2 4th down conversions, one by penalty, that's demoralizing. Then you give up an onside kick. So you think, okay, now we get to rest and regroup. No, now you got to go back out there again and play defense. So I think it was just that series of plays, that sequence was so demoralizing for the defense. It felt like when they recovered the onside kick, right? I don't know about you, but it felt like it's church at that point.
They broke the spirit. There's no doubt. I mean, I honestly, I'm not blaming the guys for that.
I'm not either.
Yeah. Literally, that was Kirby's intention. Like, I need to break their spirit, and I'm gonna do it with the first onside kick I've ever called. He said he practiced it every day. And he said it works all the time in practice, and the guys were upset that they didn't call it. But that's okay. So that's how they broke Tennessee there. Texas won't have to worry about that, because I don't think anybody else can do that, or even has an offense like that, or even has that kind of philosophy and mentality. Let's talk about defensively. I think they did this. It was their second most dropbacks that they've blitzed an opposing quarterback. They blitzed, I believe, 19 dropbacks for Arch. For Ty Simpson, I believe they blitzed him on 21 of his dropbacks. So that, they were, in terms of breaking Tennessee, really high blitz team there. But it was more the personnel on defense. Elijah Griffin, that all-world freshman, who was fantastic. He had 5 pressures, a quarterback hit. He had 28 pass rush snaps. He's just a beast. Most snaps he's had all season, though.
Yeah.
Most snaps he's had all season. Most pass rush snaps he's had all season, his career, because he's a freshman. He was their highest graded pass rusher, actually. 3 sacks by Georgia defenders. All of them, it was their first sack of the season. 2 of them, the first sack of their careers. It was the personnel. Texas, you did research on the personnel. You're like, well, that guy, he ain't never played that much. This guy's playing way more than he ever played. There were like a lot of guys, especially with the injury that happened. All right, to Allen, they ended up playing a lot of guys, and hell, these guys showed up and showed out. Zayden Walker, all-world kind of freshman linebacker, he got his first sack of his career. So did Quintavious Johnson, got the first sack of his career. I believe Gabe Harris got the first sack of the season. So it was just the personnel and how they used them. Hell, Ellis Robinson had his career high in snaps. The DB, who was damn good out there. So it was the personnel. Like, you scouted the personnel, you thought, all right, this is the guy. Turns out their best player on the D-line was a freshman who got the most snaps he's got all season.
Yeah.
It's the way that they operate.
Yeah. A lot of this stuff, when you look at kind of the 4 teams, like Texas can beat Oklahoma, and Oklahoma can beat Alabama, but Alabama can't beat Georgia, but Georgia can beat Texas. And you just kind of go around those 4 teams in the SEC. It all boils down to matchups. And I really believe, Rod, that for what Texas wants to do offensively, just as Sark's offense is currently constructed, when you're so reliant on an outside zone run game, I think the length and athleticism Georgia has with their box defenders to wipe out your zone run game, it's a terrible matchup for Texas. And I don't care what kind of offense you're talking about. When somebody makes you one-dimensional and then they're able to tee off on the quarterback, that's why I do. Florida's not as good as Georgia, but Florida has the same kind of personnel. Georgia's got better linebacker personnel. But talking about defensive front, Florida and Georgia, the personnel looks a lot the same. I just think Georgia's athleticism and length up front gives Texas so much problem to shut down their run game. And as we saw, Sark has no problem abandoning the run, because we've kind of talked about it on this show, and I think finally said it on Monday when he realized the game was going to be a shootout. Yeah, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but he basically said he didn't trust the run game to be productive enough. He felt like they had to start throwing the football. So he panicked and abandoned the run. And at this point, why would you trust your run game? It hadn't been good all year.
Agreed. That's why I'm at too. I'm like, nah, I don't trust his run game. But here's the thing. I'll throw this out there. Then we'll move on to Arkansas. If you don't trust your run game, and I agree with that. I really do. Because if I'm calling the plays and put myself in Sark's shoes, I don't trust that run game. Then why not be bullish And why not be stubborn about the few concepts that really worked for you versus Georgia? And we've talked about them over and over again. We talked about targets to motion. Let's just review real quick and then we'll move on. Okay. Won't ever talk about it again. Targets to motion versus Georgia last year in the SEC title game. You were 84% completion percentage over 9 yards per attempt, 42% conversion rate on 3rd and 4th down. Do you know how many targets to motion you had in this game?
Not enough.
5. You had 5. You had 5 targets to motion in the whole damn game. And by the way, you actually end up with 6, but one was that pass interference call. Remember, you motioned Ryan Niblett. By the way, one of the only ways that Texas broke Tennessee. We predicted that, by the way, on Football Theory. I said that, hey, I'd put Ryan Niblett in the backfield, and then I would just motion him out and go empty. They did that on the 3rd and 13, end up forcing a pass interference because they were able to manipulate the matchup they wanted that way, which was really good. He did that a few times. Also, another target to motion, he manipulated the matchup and ended up getting DeAndre Moore on the safety, was when he motioned him in the backfield. And by the way, never saw it again. All right. Saw it once in the SEC title game last year. Saw it here once. Never saw it again. Play the hit, Sark. What the hell are you doing? Also, that jerk route, great manipulation. Remember the jerk route, the 39-yarder by Emmett Mosley? Never saw it again. Never saw it again. By the way, that is also something I've said that you should do more of, right? The ag beaters. Remember the aggression beaters I talked about last year? The double moves, whatever, jerk route, stalk, block, and go, stalk, slant, all those things. Texas on ag beaters versus Georgia. Dude, they ended up with 13 yards per play on those ag beaters. You had the 39-yard jerk route. You had the 15-yard, remember the slow slant screen, shallow screen they ran with Ryan Wingo. They got you 15 yards. You ran the stalk block and go to DeAndre Moore, and you got that. Why the hell didn't you run more of those? You only had 6 ag beaters in the game. You should have had 10 to 12 ag beaters in the game. You only had 5 targets to motion. Hell, last year you had 13 targets to motion in the SEC title game against Georgia, 23 total in the 2 games you played, and you killed them on targets to motion. Why did you only have 5 in this game? Leading up into the damn game, hell, you had 17 targets to motion in 2 games against Vanderbilt and Mississippi State for 16 yards per attempt. Why the hell did you only have 5 versus Georgia? He obviously got a problem with it. Targets to bunch. I talked about it. Actually, I'll give him props. He did have a lot of targets to bunch, and you were great. Targets to bunch, real quick while I'm yelling and screaming. Targets to bunch. You were 7 yards per attempt, 41% first down touchdown rate. Your touchdown to Ryan Wingo was a target to bunch, and you were 42% 3rd down, 4th down conversion rate on targets to bunch, and you did it 17 times. I said it. That's 40% of your pass attempts, I believe. It should have been half. I said it's got to be at least half your pass attempt. The fact that you had any pass attempt that wasn't a target to bunch, wasn't a target to motion, or was an ag beater is on you, Sark.
Yeah.
Because they all worked. They all worked versus Georgia, and you didn't run enough of them. You weren't stubborn enough about it. You were too conservative. You knew what worked because you ran most of your targets to bunch on 3rd down. You had 15 3rd and 4th downs, and 7 of them were targets to bunch. So you know it worked. And why the hell aren't you running it enough? That's all. I'm done. Let's move on to Arkansas. Sorry.
Let's talk about Arkansas. What I really wanted to look at with the Arkansas game, Rod, is something that, when you look at the Georgia game with PK's defense, and look, he drops Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons way more than I want him to. But against Georgia, it kind of worked until it didn't. Really until you got to the point in the game where, Georgia was just they could have offensive balance, and then you're demoralized and your spirit's broken and all the stuff we just talked about. So it kind of worked until it didn't. And your coverage busts in the back end didn't help. So there's 2 things to be that really concern me about Arkansas. In a lot of ways, Rod, I'm more concerned about Texas facing Arkansas than I am about Texas facing Texas A&M. Which if you just look at the offense, because your defensive backs just aren't making enough plays on the ball. I look the 2 numbers that I pulled that I really want to look at. I'm looking at in SEC play, passes broken up. Texas is tied for last in the SEC in PBUs in conference play with only 17. You're not making enough plays on the ball. And then I looked at defensive back havoc rate.
Oh, that's good.
Defensive back havoc rate from the start of it's not going to be exactly because the way I'm using collegefootballdata.com. So I started week 6, which was Texas SEC opener against Florida. Some teams had already played conference games. Some teams are playing FCS teams, but Texas, Rod, their DB havoc rate, you look last year on the season, it was about 8.1%. You're at about 6.2 right now. So you're about 2% less DB havoc rate, which might not sound like a lot, but it is when you're talking about the overall picture. And you're in the bottom quarter of the SEC right now in DB havoc rate since conference play started. So you're not making enough plays on the ball. Where that's a problem this week, though, we talk about dropping guys in the coverage and allocating resources. You can't afford to allocate resources this week because this Arkansas run game you're getting ready to face, it may be the best run game in the country, all things considered. When you add Taylor Green and the quarterback runs, and that Arkansas offensive line, that's kind of a hallmark of Bobby Petrino's offense. Bobby Petrino's offense, you've got really good offensive line play. Line yards per carry is a stat that I love. Basically, everything up to 4 yards, the offensive line gets 100% credit for. So basically, the closer you are to 4 line yards per carry, that's a really good indicator of how your offensive line gets the job done. Like right now, Texas in SEC play, or actually I did this the whole year. This is season long. Texas 2.8 line yards per carry. So you're towards the bottom quarter of the SEC in line yards per carry. We know the Texas offensive line is struggling. Arkansas, you're far and away the best in the conference in line yards per carry. Arkansas is almost at 3.5 line yards per carry. Wow. That means you're basically getting a really nice surge by your offensive line pretty much every play. So this is one of those weeks, Rod, that you can't afford to allocate too many resources to help your secondary. And now you throw in the fact that Anthony Hill, even if he does play, is not going to be close to 100%. I'm much more worried about especially it's going to be easy to get up for the A&M game, but you're coming off of that loss, dealing with everything you've dealt with.
It's cool. Game.
Yeah. I mean, those Georgia and Texas, the 3 games, they beat the hell out of each other. I am in it. This is similar to that point in the midseason where I said I was much more concerned about Texas going to face Mississippi State than I was about Texas facing a top 10 Vanderbilt team. I'm much more concerned about Arkansas than I am Texas A&M.
And that's a great point because they force you to have to stack the box to stop the run game.
Yeah.
And then they can manipulate and matchups, one-on-ones on the outside and on the perimeter. And to your point with the running game, and I got this stat from Sports Info Solutions, so shout out to them. But they claim that the Arkansas Razorbacks have the best RPO offense in the country among power teams. They said they have the most yards per play on RPOs versus FBS opponents, a little over 9 yards per play. But the Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, reading size, Cardi B size, making the Stallion size. But also they say Texas is one of the best RPO defenses. If you look at fewest yards per play allowed on RPOs versus FBS opponents, Texas is 3rd behind Ohio State and James Madison at 3.9. So that's going to be important too. And without Anthony Hill, that does worry me a little bit if he doesn't play, which I don't right now. I don't feel good about. And if that's the case, then that RPO games is going to be interesting. And you better have a plan to start. Texas does. They have a really good plan, but this will be the best RPO team you faced all year long.
And one of the reasons why is you can Taylor Green as a runner. He can operate within structure on design runs, but he can hit you on scramble yards too. He's rushed with positive rushing yards. This is not net, but his positive rushing yards, according to PFF, 911. He's almost rushed for 1,000 yards. Now sack yardage comes into that, so the total's gonna be less. Yeah. But when you break it down, Rob, between scramble yards and design runs, it's almost even. 431 yards on scrambles, 480 yards on design runs. So it's Taylor Green as a runner. He can operate within structure, but because that's what makes your RPO so effective. But, and it's a little bit different. Like if you start looking at a guy like Marcel Reed at Texas A&M, Marcel Reed's going to be more about the scramble than it is design runs. Yeah. And whereas Gunnar Stockton last week, it was more about design runs than the scramble. Well, Taylor Green can kill you either way.
I like that. And what I worry about now is the rollout. Those bootlegs, those waggles, because now for 2 weeks, 2 games in a row, Dago Pavia, what Dago Pavia have? He had 2 explosive plays on rollouts and bootlegs and waggles. I think he has 75% completion percentage, 3 first downs on bootlegs and waggles. He was great on it. Gunnar Stockton, I believe 3 of their touchdowns essentially came on a bootleg or a waggle concept of some kind. That 4th and 1 for that 10-yard reception, that was on a bootleg or a waggle. Texas has been really susceptible to it and vulnerable to that concept. And Taylor Green can do that. And hell, Marcel Reed can do that as well too. You better figure that out as well.
And just a little FYI, I'm not going to expect Marcel Reed to run a bunch in A&M's game this week because they're just not going to need to against Sanford. But if you just want to look ahead, like I said, Gunnar Stockton was more about the design run than the scramble. Marcel Reed, he's positive rushing yards gained is 443 according to PFF, 293 on scrambles, only 150 on design runs. So we can get into that talking about tendency breakers, but again, you're facing one guy that likes design runs, one guy that likes to scramble. Well, again, Taylor Green can hurt you with either.
That's good. All right. Good stuff, Jeff. It's great as always. Let me once again give a shout out to one of our sponsors before we end things with a message from two legendary lifetime Longhorns, Vince Young and Cole McCoy for Advanced Pain Care.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
All right. Great stuff, Jeff. Appreciate you as always. Thanks to Matthew behind the scenes, twisting and tweaking the dials. Thanks to each and every one of you for watching and for listening. And for Jeff and for Matthew, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.